I'm here with Noora Sandgren, who is photographer working on photography, installations, text. And Noora is especially interested in organic materials and how they are forming contemporary photographic art. Welcome, Noora. You've been part of the mentoring program of the Festival of Political Photography, and now Noora is today presenting her project. And the mentoring program is supported by Patricia Seppälä Foundation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anna-Kaisa. Yeah, my name is Noora, and I'm a visual artist and art educator. And something about my background. I graduated from photography department at Aalto University of Arts, Design and Architecture. And I have ongoing studies also in art education. And before I studied social psychology in Helsinki University. And of course, these have some effect on my artistic work too. But about my artistic process, it's usually quite site sensitive, and the process means a lot to me. So when I'm gonna have a presentation like this, it is kind of a strange situation, because usually the images are just part of the process, and more process is visible, for example, in exhibition settings. But in my previous works, I have been working quite a lot in the family garden in Hiidenvesi, and there has been like different exhibitions coming out of those, and they've usually had also some performative elements. And for sure, like new materialist and post-humanist theory inform my practice, and but everything is also like art-based research learned. So I can thank a lot the garden for giving so much for my artwork. And about photography, I'm especially interested in cameraless process, which to me, when working often outside, is about dealing with agencies taking part in the processes. It is intimate and spatially inclusive, sensing, relating in time kind of situation of many bodies. But before going to my presentation more, I want to thank the Festival of Political Photography organizer for this mentor program, which has enabled me to start this long-term project related to my urban forest neighbor called Helsinki Central Park. And this is a project which I feel is at its beginning now, and which will go on for a long time also after this presentation. And I also want to thank colleagues who have shared their knowledge, and everyone who has supported me with this process. Okay, maybe now I can share my slide. I have written down something, and hopefully you can bear my reading and see everything okay. Yes, now.
It's functioning. Yeah, it's perfect.
Cool. So maybe just like a background base for this project. I have lived all my life next to this city forest, Helsinki Central Park. And when I started this project, I was trying to remember like my earliest childhood memories from the forest, and I just felt like it was a huge place where I could be free, but I would also have to be careful on how to move there, because it could also be kind of dangerous to be moving there, and it's just it was just a place of imagination and something like a vast entity of something more powerful than me. I could feel being very small there, and I think something about these feelings I have wanted to kind of reminisce and take back to my relationship when I have been like getting to know better this forest neighbor within this project now. So something about this forest. Yeah, here is some kind of a map. Probably you can see two different maps
Yeah.
of the Central Park. It's about 10 kilometers long, 1,000 hectares area, starting from the heart of city center, and it has been named the Central Park since 1911, when architect Bertel Junge made kind of plans for it to exist, and ever since there has been also struggles of keeping up with this map and not cut a little by little from its borders, the forest smaller. And also I think I wish that the area would have been called forest instead of a park, because I think park has a different identity and different rights, different aesthetic demands than a forest. It's something that is in the city planning seen as human recreational use area, and in this kind of area there is a lot narrower level of wildness that is allowed to exist. And but to me it is a forest, as an urban forest with a huge multitude of living creatures and plants and everything. So but also on this map I think this park forest it looks quite solid, but actually it is split by many roads in many places, and during my lifetime I have seen how little by little this area is being cut, and demonstrations are made for city dwellers to try to keep it existing like it is. But to me, this forest body is something I cannot separate myself from, because since my childhood, this multitude of entities have parented me. So it has taken part in forming the sense of self, and it has become part of my identity. And while living together, we have exchanged things in microbial level too. So I care deeply for this forest entity, and can feel the losses and mishandlings of it also in my body and in my sleep. And recent losses within a year of this talk has been in the area called Pirkkolan Metsä, Pirkkola Woods, about 5 kilometers away from where I live. Part of the forest and big round rock space was torn down due to a building of a sports hall. This violent use of city forest land was done despite 11,000 people signing against it. It is a great loss to inhabitants of the city forest area, but also all the city dwellers. And it has not been easy for me also to follow this situation or so-called progress happening in this area. I have visited this quite many times during the year, and be like thinking about how to create art when in the same time there is explosions of the ground rock shattering the whole grounds. So you can imagine how difficult it has been to be there, but I have still tried, because one of my aims has also been to ponder upon the ways of grieving the loss of more than human entities and multi-species relationships. And since we have no conventions for those, and they are very much needed during these days. But I have to say that this work is still in progress, and I will go on with working with that. And some of the concepts that I have been working with is resistant mourning, where relationship with the lost entity is carried on and kept alive and not forgotten. So I have translated this in Finnish, vastakarvaan suraminen, and that's something that I am going to continue with, hopefully, yeah, finding also other partners to keep on remembering the place of Pirkkola Lost Forest site. yeah, but the broader aim with my project has been to get to know better and deepen my relationship to this forest neighbor. And here in this picture, actually, this is one of the first first dealings of the ground rock situation, and yeah, I think like when approaching things with an aim to find out something more in order to care in appropriate ways, one needs to do research and learn more about the entities and relationships and cycles and the histories. And sometimes you also need to learn new techniques which might suit better to working with the theme chosen. So when you work with such complex entity as forest, it can first seem really chaotic, like Iri said from this festival, that there is a forest, that the forest is something quite chaotic, and it can be difficult to understand where to start. And I guess like the more you learn, the more conscious you become of the vastness of things that one should be studying. So during this year, I have read about parks and forest and maintenance plans that the city has made for this central park, and about the biodiversity. What does it mean when strings of connections have been formed under many years, and the meaning of having enough space for a variety of species and within one species to exist. So I've also read about care, which always involves hierarchies of control and power. So for example, in Helsinki Central Park forest, there are negotiations when fallen trees, when trees fall, if they can be like left to decompose, or if people will complain about the messiness of the forest. But still, like this, after talking with a specialist, this fungi specialist, I learned that letting these woods to be there and decompose is one of the greatest things of recuperation that we can allow to happen. And so I've learned during this year techniques, new techniques, and talked with specialists, for example, from microbiology and soil science, fungal life, and different mosses. I've talked with the musicians using Karelian dirges, and animation artists, and I think none of my work is happening alone, but in collaboration with many others. So this background research, of course, it's taking time, and much of it is remaining like invisible, but hopefully in maybe 2023 or something, I may have an exhibition out of this project, and some of the background research may come as giving like a more context and background information in side by side with the images that you are seeing today. Okay, but going through, here are just some images of like where I have been just trying to process with myself the ground rock situation. What it is so incomprehensible how we could be exploding such formations in a second, and there, I don't know, it's very difficult to depict it in also as an artist. But before the explosions at Pirkkola site, I managed to get these frottage drawings. So these are the last last memories I have of the ground rocks, and they resonate deeply. Okay, but about this on-site work in Pirkkola, I will not show more documentary images of the happenings there. They look like war zone, and they are quite traumatic images. I recommend everyone to go and experience your near forest or the Central Park and Pirkkola yourself. So I think that is a better thing than showing the images for me, for my practice. Because I think to talk about something so hurtful, it is about how to find ways to deal with traumatic situations, like in how do those images work, those straight forward documentary images. That is a question that I have been pondering. So I think, like, with this with my own images, I would like to maybe create a kind of viewership, but also make the situation able for me, like able for staying with this difficult situation and keep on memorizing the places. So in a way that art I believe that art can make us realize our own agency and abilities and use our imagination instead of trying to explain things very straightforward. But of course, many kind of imageries are needed when we are dealing with such complex situations. So when I think about what photographs do, I could think about the photographic that arises from and lives in the experienced lived through process that is in the multi-agential becoming of the image trace and in the viewing situation, and the photographic trace which has a body and which lives inside the artist too. So yeah, hopefully this whole project becomes an exhibition at some point that could be happening also partly in the forest. I have been working with light sensitive material. So for example, this is just at the border of the building site, and I have been leaving the photographic papers at the site to live and witness the happenings in Pirkkola, and resulting images are non-representative abstract photographs, which I think may have ability of working in different ways than the straight documentary photographs. But they, of course, they need more aside of them, more context information too. But I think the dealing with the situation is not over for me, and I also now have these papers, photographic bodies developing there, and I think these cameraless images create an inclusive space where everything happens, where snow and rain and moist from the trees, microbes living in the woods all meet and get entangled. The image trace is based on physical enmeshment in time, and it is an image of becoming with instead of purely about something. So yeah, here are just some of the examples. Okay, maybe keeping this. But I wanted to know more about the mistreated soils in Pirkkola. What are the soils made of? Who inhabits those soils that are piled aside of the building blocks that are treated as trash? And I think, like, when I work with these old photographic papers, which are kind of useless material or not functioning the way we would want to, or not controllable, it is aligned with the working with these matters of soils that are also treated as leftovers. And I went back to Pirkkola again to collect soil samples, and I took them to biophilia lab in Aalto, where I was having another residency. And with the help of Janka Moitzer, biologist, and lab master Victoria Kang, we extracted DNA samples, and those were sent to analysis, and I got like this list of fungi and bacteria, and of course it was exciting to get this list, but I also have this respect to it being like a part of the only partial information, because there is so much in the soil that we do not know. For example, I read that we only know 5% of the fungi that we have on this planet, and there is about 3 or almost 4 million species of fungi. So this is still partial information. But I exhibited this image that was made at the terrains of Pirkkola, and this list of DNA sample, soil sample data with this small textual information about it. And this was exhibited in Kunsthall Helsinki this autumn in the New Perspectives Through Photography exhibition, where I felt that the list of names could also be seen as an image with documentary qualities.
Noora, please hold your cursor not as so close to the west exactly, because
Okay,
and
better now.
yeah, that's better. No problem. Just like
Yeah, good you said it. Okay, but yeah, I believe that it matters if something reduced to general concepts such as soil is worked deeper towards particularities, because what remains also invisible, out of sight, seem to not be there at all, and it ends up having less rights of existence and proper handling. There is no identity. Making the microbial life, for example, fungal and bacterial life, visible is one way of respecting the tiny entities that make up the forest. It is about gaining more knowledge of the abilities and the equally beneficial social relations they are able to create with other species. For example, tree-fungal symbiosis keeping the forests alive. And in general, 90% of planet's plants have this ally with root fungi, mycorrhiza, fungi giving water and nutrients to plants, and plant giving carbohydrate and energy to fungi. Though the fungi roots, through the fungi roots, the tree is able to connect with other trees, and I find this mediating and communication enabling quality, this internet of wood wide web living under our feet, something that resembles our notion of community. And there's also something photographic in the in it, but I'm not sure how to explain it yet. So this means that the tree we see and we cut is much more, and these root fungi also make up the soils resilient to erosion, making the soil more stable, which is meaningful now in the situation of climate change. And so when the temperatures temperature changes are bigger, and there is more rainfall, for example. Our current society can also thank fungi for a lot of terms, a lot of things, for example, food production and medicinal qualities. So for me, much research remains to be done with these lists, for example. But anyway, I think it is quite interesting to know that within these results there is, for example, this Ascomycota like a string of fungi, which is one of the oldest living things on the drylands in our planet's history. So it means that there are living organisms that have been here approximately 600 million years ago. So that kind of gives a new perspective to this, also this treating as trash kind of situation. So I think when thinking of how to relate to these entities, one can consider, for example, penicillium, which is a genus of these Ascomycoteus fungi, which has been a major importance to all humans, and penicillium can be used for antibiotics for harmful bacteria, killing harmful bacteria. We all have some experience of that. So one other technique that I have been working with is just recently is this soil chromatography, and it's generally said it has made me think about more what is soil, and I learned recently from this soil scientist that it is formed by water, air, minerals, and organic matter that are constantly in progress, and it is such a complex notion that even for a hardcore scientist, it is like a challenging to work with the notion of soil. And they have, like, soils have importance in our ecosystem and in climate change, also as carbon keepers, and the whole keeping of the whole plant life going on, which enables us to breathe, for example. But this soil chromatography is a pictorial biochemical method for assessing soil quality, and it was created by Ernfried Pfeiffer in 1950s, who was an expert in biodynamic farming, which is a specific approach striving towards sustainable life. Soil chromatography method, it was created to enable farmers to assess the health of soils and compost and farming land. And it is made by collecting a soil sample. So again, I was digging a sample from Pirkkola, and then it is mixed with sodium hydroxide and distilled water, and then before it touches this specific chromatographic paper, which is pre-treated with silver nitrate solution, and I have to say that the image is it is like it produces like this image, the chromatograph through a specific setting of a wick and this paper, and it creates this round chromatograph. After many phases, you can have an image like yeah, like this, for example. And how to read this kind of image is how the interpretation happens is not exactly easy, even for the soil scientist. But for example, from the different color tones and possible spikes and channels, it is possible to read something. And I guess, like, if you repeat this again and again, it becomes more accurate method to be used to think about to assess the soil quality. So so in Pirkkola, for example, when I was gathering the sample, I think it was also about this embodied knowledge happening, because of course I was thinking that I was feeling with my fingers how what does it mean when the first snow has fallen and the terrain starts to react to the temperatures of winter, and how, for example, in 15-meter area, like a quite small area, 3 different samples could give such different kinds of soils. So even with ice, it was easy to understand how how vast the notion of soil is. And of course it is a land that has gone through trauma, and it but then of course with the digging of the soil, the terrain, there's also like these memories from childhood that come to mind. But I think this is like a relational way of understanding a specific landscape. This is about active listening, really, and kind of thinking about the skin of the earth. How is it speaking in a pictorial way, and what are the agential qualities and biological processes of the soil? And this image is developed during a week, so it is a very slow process, and that is also meaningful to me because a lot of my work has been about slowness too. So then going further, I have been also working with photogrammetric techniques in collaboration with media artist Samuli Homanen. And this technique is actually used for mapping and for learning about topography and geology, archaeology, and making maps, but also in the field of medicine. And one function has also been to document historical places at risk to disappear, which is one of my aims too, when I have been working with the border areas of this Central Park, because they are really at risk of becoming lost in near future, I think. So I have worked with 6 scenes from the forest borders, and each scene contains approximately 300 images. And these images are about looking and relating with different distances and bodily positions to and with something that is researched. The process makes it clear to the photographer how rich in detail, for example, ordinary ground rock or actually wherever you look for real is. Each scene then is composed into a 3D model, which is a reconstruction when hundreds of perspectives meet. Photogrammetry is controlled photomosaic, where a 3D image is constructed from several camera angles. And I can show the next one. So here you can see, for example, each dot is a photograph happening in a spatial situation with just some ordinary rocks, ground rocks nearby where I live. And with this technique, it is possible to create an immersive experience when taken, for example, as an installation to an exhibition space. It could be, for example, created as a projection installation. And I think like this, this may be a way of giving appreciation to the uniqueness of places with specific life histories. And for example, one can compare the reading of topography in map versus the geodiversity experienced bodily when you go to the forest, how different they are as experiences. So I think created as an artwork, this photogrammetric work could serve as a memorial and one way of grieving lost sites in a way that refuses to forget. But of course, this is still an abstraction, a model, always a simplification, and not able to make up the real situation. and for example, in Helsinki city, the building projects they rely on modeling, which is used in predicting also consequences and risks. But I think this work with the photogrammetric technique has also made it even more clear that the model is always based on approximate patterns and therefore assumptions relating to the place where the data is from and where it is applied to. And it is not like a situation specific at all. But photogrammetry leads to thinking of the constructedness of photograph, the notion of pixels and the artificiality between lived and experienced image and the photographic representation. The power of models can be seen in how Helsinki city, all land is mapped and areas are depicted and measured as pixels with assigned usage. However, this way of perception of land is really instrumental and lacking reciprocity. In this kind of attitude towards land, it is seen, the land is seen as passive material existing for human ownership and control and use. But this neglects the fact that we are living in inter and intraconnected mesh where we are dependent on living soils. And the question of equalities is usually solved through concepts and words and images that all reproduce the idea of culture and nature kind of dichotomies and separations. So these matter because they have to do with equality, who has the right to exist and continue living. Photograph taken and shown from one perspective then can, in my perspective, can enhance a little bit the idea of controllability of life through simplification, and it can also create distance and help to forget the material volumes and liveliness of phenomena. So this photogrammetric way of dealing with the usage of photography is also one way of tackling the distancing problem in case shown as an immersive installation. And also it is breaking this one point perspective problem that photographs always have. Also I think as an experience, it was making me much more much more it was like about creating the bodily relationship really to this place and looking at, and not just have one image and one definition, but really many different standpoints. And I think like in case this would become an immersive installation piece, it could be important. This immersiveness is important because it is creating a place for feeling and having bodily affectedness and creating these memory stains. Even though if it's like artificial setting, it can still I think it can still be carried within the body as a directing force or something like that. And I have a demo about this, but I think before showing this, I'm just gonna show the last freshest work still in progress, because every time I go to I walk in the forest, there is always something that sticks and is carried with me, and I carry them with me and take them home, and they are here in my everyday life and remind and ask questions. So last Friday I went to Pirkkola and I saw quite a lot of plastic that was like stuck in the spruce and living there with the winds, and I picked those with me, and I think I was just wondering like how it is said that the way that the society treats the leftover is telling so much about the society itself. So then I took these plastics with me, and they multiplied into 15 light drawings of what I don't know yet. Maybe they are shells or cells or portraits. I'm not sure. But at the construction site, I saw this material shipment, like containers with the name Industrial Nature, and it just made me wonder if this material is labeled like that, and in case human nature has become like that since the Industrial Revolution, where, how, with whom is my nature and the nature of the photographic then? So this kind of questions I was thinking when working with these portraits or cells or whatever they are. Anyway, in the future, I'm hoping to make some practical measures of restorations in the park, because there is, due to a lot of usage, especially in Corona times, the park, it is visible that the park is getting worn down. So I have been researching ways to make like these recuperating measures and working with mosses, for example. So I've consulted this scientist at the Finnish Museum of Natural History and received some instructions how to do it, but it's not very easy, so I have to gather some strength, but hopefully next year it will happen. And also I've made some plans to meet with this fungi specialist and learn more about the nature mapping methods, which yeah, it is a very practical way of working for the continuance of the forests. And then I have made connections with musicians using dirges, and I've taken a course on that too, and hopefully writing something for the forest soonish. But yeah, we will see what the future will bring.
Shall we watch the demo?
Yes, let's do
Yes.
that.
So before we watch the demo, I want to say thank you, Noora. That was super interesting. And now you will share your screen for the demo.
Yeah, thank you for listening. And here, so this is a demo version of the
Can you put it full screen?
Yeah, this is the demo version still. Okay, I think that was near the end of it. So
Thanks.
it had like a first version of the sounds, but maybe in the future it will be more also mixing like the local sounds of the happenings in the forest, and in a bigger scale. So
Okay, thank you, Noora.